Hello, I'm Dr. Basil Considine. I'm here from the ACU Online Writing Center, and today we're going to be talking about signature stories. Now, a signature story is something between a mission and a vision statement and marketing, and that's a really cool intersection of these different things, because if you craft a compelling signature story for your organization or your mission or your group, you not only inspire and guide what you do internally, but also how people externally relate to you. So we're going to dive deep into this, and just as we get started, make sure that you check out our Writing Webinars archive. If you scroll down to the tab Guide, you can select by program and find all of the webinars that we have that tie in with specific courses and their assignments, as you can see here. So if you happen to be in, say, APCO 421 or 422, check it out, because we've got some brand new webinars available. Now, we have three principal learning objectives for today. First is to understand the signature story as a genre. Second, to look at how to write a signature story using the lens of a specific assignment from APCO 421. And then we'll finish with talking about the process of outlining and drafting, of taking those instructions into writing the actual document that you submit, and planning out in advance what goes where, how you're going to organize it, what sorts of details will be helpful, etc. So let's talk about the genre of a signature story. Now, first thing is to specify what we mean by that, and here I'm going to refer to acre and acre. A signature story is an intriguing, authentic, involving narrative with a strategic message that enables a firm to grow by clarifying or enhancing its brand, customer relationships, organization, and/or business strategy. Signature stories represent a critical asset that can be leveraged over time and which can provide inspiration and direction, both inside and outside the firm. So it's not just marketing. And it's not just an internal guiding statement. It's something that is both internal and external. The narrative that we write and buy into and agree to. You might think of marriage as an example of something that has a similar internal and external component. You tell people outside that you're married, and then there's a question of, okay, how do you live that out within the relationship? And, there are all sorts of dynamics that factor into why people end up together. But one of the compelling ones, one of those that we see reinforced in many situations is, oh, we fall in love. There's something special about us. And if you agree that there's something special, that's a good start for a relationship. If you don't agree that there's something special, well, do as you please. But for a signature story, there is that idea of something special, something alluring, something attractive that brings in the outside people and makes them interested, invested, intrigued. So let's talk a little bit about those elements that go into it. That intriguing part that catches your attention. And this is one of the things where a signature story is more than just a fact sheet. In fact, the emphasis is less on the facts than on the narrative, how these are connected, and that kind of grabbing your interest of like, ooh, I'd like to know more about that. Now, as an example, I happen to own several backpacks by the American backpack manufacturer Osprey. I love them. These are the replacements of my previous Osprey bags. Now, for me, something very special about these is that they're actually made in the United States. They're made in southwest Colorado, actually. And so if you send your back in for repairs, they'll actually repair it and send it back to you, so you can continue your story with that. And, these bags have followed me around the world, and I'm like, these are magnificent. I love them. They're like old friends. They've outlasted many actual friends and stuff. And for me, there's that story of it, of, oh, it's American-made, rugged, comfortable, made by people who are using it. I love that. So I tell people about Osprey all the time. Now then there's the authenticity. Has to be believable, should be grounded in reality. Sometimes there's a little glossing that happens, but it should have the ring of authenticity. So people say like, nah, that's made up. It's not going to help your story catch on. For me, for every time I've talked with the customer service people at Osprey, because, in 15 years, the bag does need a repair or two. They've always been telling me about the things that they're doing hiking-wise and their favorite bags and stuff, and I believe them because they're living in this part of Colorado where there's a lot of outdoor stuff, and I'm like, hey, yeah, that all sounds like you're using these bags yourselves. Involving, something that makes you want to get involved. And sometimes you read a story, someone says, oh, I met this dish, it was delicious, here's the experience wasn't like, oh, I feel like I can taste it now, or I really want to go get it. That kind of involving, engrossing thing, really helpful. Strategic message, so how do we situate it? And if you think about it, going back to Osprey, the fact that they still make their backpacks in the United States, which is not something that many other manufacturers are doing these days, that's a strategic decision that they made that sends a message. You know, they're investing in their local community and hiring in their local community. It's not just a distribution warehouse or something like that, or just a design shop with a distribution warehouse. They are really kind of an old-fashioned company, and for me, that actually is really appealing. I like the idea that investing in a place that I love to visit. Clarifies or enhances important elements. So this is going to be something that catches the attention. So, you know, if you read the story like, oh, that sounds a great company. What do they make again? Osprey, like backpacks. They make other bags and stuff, but like backpacks. Those are the things that I own. Those are the things I take around. And then there's the guiding bit. And that's a little more nebulous. This is what keeps it from being just a marketing campaign. But if I had to summarize it, I would say in the signature story, it's something that should inspire the people inside and the people outside. And when there's a kind of fork in the road decision, like, well, we could do that or that the story itself guides what they should do. Commonly cited in signature stories is the story of L.L. Bean, another American manufacturer, this one based in Maine. And according to the signature story for L.L. Bean, and Mr. Bean makes his first batch of 100 shoes, and there's a manufacturing problem. They don't work as well, but he replaces them all. He fixes them all. And so the customers, even though there was an initial unhappiness, is resolved. It's fixed in the end. He has made good. And that kind of says what the company does. And to this day, if you're not satisfied, you send it back and they'll repair or replace it. And, that makes very loyal customers. I still have LL Bean stuff from when I was growing up that I'm like, hey, it's a solid brand. If there's any problem, they take care of it. So, and this, of course, applies to a lot more than just bags and outdoor gear. But, if you think about it, the fact that it happens to be about that doesn't stop it from being intriguing and beguiling to other people. So, with the signature story, you want to have a compelling narrative that somehow conveys an imprint of the most essential, most fundamental aspects of who your organization is, what it stands for, and how you're special. And LL Bean, he could have walked away with the customer's money. He already had it. But he cared enough to repair and make everything right. And, that's less common. It's definitely something that shows who they stand for as an organization, and that distinguishes them, because often you'd have to go through this whole process. I have some headphones I need to return. They want me to send a video of my showing that the headphones don't work, which I've never been asked for before. I'm like, that is annoying. That is special in the wrong way. So, they've kind of told me what they stand for with that, and I'm like, I don't feel like buying from that company anymore. So, the signature story is less focused on facts and figures, but more focused on the who and why. Who are these people? Why do they do the things that they do? So at this point, let's take a look at this specific assignment and see what it's asking you to do with a signature story. Now, this is taken from the APCO 421 course, that's Executing Organizational Change. And we're looking particularly about how you might create a signature story to evolve, to shape, to change, transform an organization. And the assignment description begins with a brief preamble and tell you to begin the process of leading change through creating a signature story, and that this is something that is feeding into the eventual final project. So you want something that you're willing to work on beyond this week because it's going to be coming back. And the instructions say, first, decide on a change initiative that you would like to start, either real or imaginary, in your organization. You get to pick what kind of organization you're writing for. It could be where you work, your church, volunteer. I would double check with the professor, but usually something like this, if there's an organization you want to work in, and you want to do this as a hypothetical, that's usually fine, provided you know it well. You need to identify a problem that this change initiative is going to be addressing, and the outcome that you would like to see. And there's a reminder that you should be thinking large and not something that can be done very quickly or easily. So something to merit this sort of investment. Now, replacing the copy machine isn't really a change process, but if you had like a whole copy staff and then you're moving to, electronic publishing or something like that, that might be more significant. But whatever it is, the change initiative, you've got 2 paragraphs to describe that. Next, you want to write your signature story using the FIRES model as a guide. And then, following the reading, use the cornerstones to anchor what you're proposing and to justify your work, to show, okay, here's how it connects to the reading, how this aligns with what the reading says to do. Got another reminder, the story should be the start of a compelling and positive reason your organization should begin down the path of your change initiative. So you're crafting the story to fit the planned actions. The total length should be around 3 to 4 pages. It can be longer, but make sure it's formatted in APA style. And there's also a video to watch for additional information. If we look at the rubric, it's pretty straightforward. It's basically saying, have you done all the things that are required in sufficient depth and breadth? So let's now move to the outlining and drafting stage and start by looking at the different readings that you might be using. Now, for this week's module, we have a number of required readings, and to illustrate, I have shown the different ways that you would reference and cite those. So we have the course text that should be familiar after the last couple weeks, Leading Positive Organizational Change. We have a website, a web link that leads to a white paper. So here's how you would cite that. It is a journal-like format, but because it's a white paper, it is being published online. Now, it's in a collection that they call PMI white paper, so it's not the standard white paper format. It's more akin to an electronic journal. That's fine. And APA style does actually allow you, in there's case of doubt, to cite and reference more than one way, but in this case, this is how I would recommend referencing that. We have the change guide, the best change readiness assessment guide from Dion Global Services, and that is something, it's not a dated resource. There's no publication date on that webpage, so that's why we have the N period, D period. This article here, Positively Energizing Leaders Are Heliotropic. And there's the Organizational Change Management Guide from the state of California. If you're wondering, and that's a resource that it's stamped with the state of California seal on the top, and the state as an organization claims organizational authorship over the work. So those are the required and recommended sources that you might be citing for this assignment. And as you are formulating things, keep in mind that it's not just asking you to state what the story is, but state why it is here. So if we look at this, explaining the initiative, you're going to want to be making an argument that you are supporting with evidence, argumentation, analysis, synthesis. So make sure to follow the no tiers plan for adding those. And let us now move into implementing the template. Now, I have here a copy of the APA course paper template, and start out by putting in the name of the assignment. It does not need to be fancy, but it should be descriptive, so signature story is just fine. Make sure that you remove all these placeholders that show you the different formatting. And references, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be using the course references, the required readings here, so I'm going to go ahead and add them here. Now, do keep in mind that you are required to only be referencing things that you cite in the text, and it should only be citing things in the text that appear in your references list. So make sure that those two are keyed up. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using them all, and I'll have a step to check that. So I'm going to start adding them soon. But first things first. First comes getting the assignment instructions here. So I've just copy and pasted these bullet points in here. And okay, I need to decide on what the change will be. And alright, I'm just going to go ahead and bold these instructions here so that it's clear what's the copy and paste and what I'm adding. So I need to identify what the organization is. So I've decided this is going to be a church. Alright, so that's my organization. Where is it? What should we know about it? Okay, and what's the problem? Now, you might hint at it here, but we want the detailed description to be here. And say, okay, the problem here is, let us say, now, you get to pick the organization, you get to pick the problem that you're attacking. The point is to be clear on what the problem is and how it's significant. And so tell us about what's going on. What's the problem? And what will the solution be? Now, I don't know what the solution you're going to be proposing there, but you want the change initiative and the signature story that you craft related to that to be interlocking. So let's just say that I've decided, okay, we need a new campaign. We need to rally. We need to build a spirit of volunteerism in this parish again. Okay, so how am I going to do that? Well, we'll get to the how, but what's the outcome? Well, the outcome, we want to have excess of volunteers. We want these programs to be running, etc. So what is the outcome you want? And steps needed. This is that explain the initiative. Okay, so what's the story? Well, we're going to start with the fires model, break that down the different pieces. And we need to have the cornerstones as well. Now, if we're looking at the instruction, it says that the change initiative should be described in 2 paragraphs. So now's a good time to think about structure. And one way to say is, okay, we're going to talk about the problem and the outcome in 1, and we'll talk about the steps needed to get there in the next one. And this would then serve as the introduction. And once you've marked that off, you can go ahead and cross off things like this so you're focused on just the tasks remaining. So we need to have the Fires model breakdown. We need our cornerstones. And somewhere in there, you know that there's going to also be a bit of conclusion and discussion of the elements. And so now we have a fairly good blueprint here. Now, as you start working on this, make sure to add references as you see that something is relevant. Now, as you see, I've gone ahead and just pasted in the required references here. And now I can start thinking about how these might factor in as I'm doing the reading and approaching the outline. Because the state of California has this guide that says, oh, here's steps to follow. So when I'm working on my plan here, of the steps needed, that's probably something that's going to come up. And so you can give yourself a reminder here to work that as you're doing the reading and see that things in fact do coalesce there. Okay, I should be citing that for this. And start putting in these notes to yourself about what readings you're citing with this. Now it's important to do the actual reading, and otherwise you may end up making arguments that aren't actually supported. But if you look at this and you say, okay, well, that if positive energy is something that you're going to be talking about, how you're going to create a culture of this in your organization, then you're probably going to be citing the Cameron 2021 piece there. And so you can use this to build out the outline. And so that cuts out a couple stages, because if you have the outline already in progress and you know which sources you're going to be reading, then as you do the reading, you can look back at the outline and say, oh, yes, that would work here. That would work there. And do make sure that you not only state what you're doing, but state why you're doing it. So that's going to be the evidence or argumentation, the grounding, analyze it. Okay, you're doing this as recommended by this group for these reasons. And make sure you don't skip that synthesis. What do all these things mean when put together? And the goal is in part to craft that signature story, but the larger goal is how do you create change, durable change, lasting change, deep change in the organization to fulfill your goals. And if you're a little short on ideas there, then remember that it's always a good idea to think about how this connects to the course and module objectives. And I've excerpted some of those here. Because for this module, some of the goals are to conduct a pre-change organizational fitness audit, so that's certainly something you can write about. To use the fresh, informative, related, energizing strategic framework, that's the FIRES one, to create a signature story related to the change initiative, and to assess positive workforce culture assets. So what are you going to be building on as part of this? Let's take a quick hop back to the outline here. Make sure that you don't skip any of the FIRES elements, because that is something that the rubric says if you don't do all of them, you won't get full credit. So again, having this laid out before you as a list of things that you know you need to talk about will help you as you do the reading identify things that will fit into the outline to put that information there and then be able to write sentences and paragraphs very quickly and efficiently. That's all we have for today. If you have any questions, feel free to email the Writing Center at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu or schedule an appointment by going to my.acu.edu, selecting from the links and resources list the Online Writing Center, and then we'll have step-by-step instructions waiting for you. All right, feel free to check out our website, and with that, have a good night.